because I travel a lot, I see the things that make the nation special.
Here in Sovereign Albion, we're interested in exploring and scaling British greatness. So I wanted to speak with Elijah, a friend and artist. He's a very special person to have that conversation with. He's an artist, writer, DJ and founder of the record label Butterz. He came up through grime and pirate radio, a scene that had to build its own infrastructure, and in doing so produced something totally distinctively British, culturally, sonically and economically. More recently, he's the author of Close the App, Make the Ting, a set of prompts and provocations that I think of as akin to A16Z's It's Time to Build, encouraging agency in new and emerging artists. This was a really special conversation. We explored cultural sovereignty and the role of media institutions in platforming British art, power laws and talent spotting in record labels, cultural company building in the internet era, overcoming tall poppy syndrome, rent as the creative director, and how it's up to all of us to reconnect the nation. All fundamentally in service of an increasingly important question. How do we platform and scale cultural greatness in Britain? Let's get into it. How would you describe the way that your work is usually framed?
Today, I think people think I'm just a guy that gives creative advice on the internet.
Interesting.
Shares ideas for artists, how people can get into the music industry. And for the most part, that's not what I'm interested in. I've never really had a love for the music industry or anything like that. I started out on pirate radio, I did a DIY kind of independent label. It was not what I was doing was the antithesis of that. I've never worked for a music company or major label. And a lot of the artists and scenes and music were spiritually against those things. I think people think about it more in terms of the music scene that I'm part of, rather than a wider vision of what I think, I guess, makes Britain interesting.
Yeah.
And because I travel a lot, I see the things that make the nation special. You know what I mean?
That's a good way of putting it. Yeah, yeah.
And a lot of people that maybe don't get out as much, they take everything as normal. Oh, that's normal. That's normal. Manners are normal. All these things that are law is normal. If you call the police, people will come. It's normal. I'm like, that's not normal. It's not like that in most places in the world. And the things that maybe I've benefited from were intangible to me until I was able to maybe step out of London, step out of the 40-minute zone of East London that I've grown up in and benefited from, visited the rest of the country, or when I started traveling to places that say don't have arts funding, all these institutions. And then, usually my work isn't framed in that way, but it is it's impacted the way I communicate and my experience. And today, I guess a lot of the things I was doing organically or exploring by myself are now institutionally acceptable. So being a DJ or an MC, you can do a course for that. Or someone could teach you how to make beats at university, and it's socially acceptable to say, oh, I'm an artist, or I'm going to university to study music technology in a way that, at least when I went to university, that would be why would you do that? You can't get a job in that. And it's still the case today, but it's more socially acceptable because there are courses that make that acceptable. And, there are grime MCs that are, I don't know, MBEs and stuff.
Yeah.
In a way that it wasn't when I was.
It's funny how the institutional credibility comes into it. And there's a bit of a shift there. I was saying, I spoke to Zacchaeus Yule recently, and we were talking a bit about we were talking about a whole bunch of things, including new folk cultures. We were talking a bit about Notting Hill Carnival as an interesting new folk custom. And then I was is UK garage folk. And then she took it down the sort of route of grime, and particularly making the point, I think, that grime, obviously this is the scene that you grew up in, and they had this relationship. It was DIY. It had I don't know whether you describe it as anti-institutional or not, but it was certainly outside of many of the existing kind of commercial institutions. And but then there's this crossover point. I was well, when does it become part of the music industry, and when does it start to have that institutional on the one hand credibility, but also maybe commodification, or it just becomes as you say, it's it's a path that you can go down because you pick a course.
Yes.
And it's gone mainstream and normalized, which in some ways is great because more people get into it, and in other ways it changes it. I don't know how you feel things have
changed both like within grime, but like the music industry more broadly?
Yeah, there's a bit more of like a revisionist history because people are saying now, oh, we've always loved this kind of thing. And I was like, it wasn't just like anti-institutional in the sense that we're against the thing. The thing was against us. So like when I was coming up, like there was like the Form 696 by the Metropolitan Police that was monitoring how ethnic minorities were organising in clubs and things like that. So that's like, again, an institutional kind of structure that's like, okay, we're not sure about this thing. And even at majors or radio, people would actively say, you know, this is like rubbish, or like that no one will want to buy this, and we're not going to take this to the rest of the country. We don't think the UK will be interested in this music, or like even like rap is better than grime. Like that's like a normal position for someone in a major record label to have. And 20 years later, we have like this organization MOBO, like Music of Black Origin, and now they have like a grime award. But when that music was developing, they didn't have one. So that even the institutional things designed for, say, like black music even, have had to do like a kind of revisionist history. Yeah. Of like, oh, like we always loved grime.
Interesting. Did you get this like feedback when you were, like you've at different points kind of you've been a bit critical, I think kind of very reasonably, of like some of the major radios and institutions like not really platforming Black British music. Like how are those like conversations? Is like this some of the things that's like come out in the response?
Well, there was always like this idea of like the business case of why you shouldn't, like, oh, 50 Cent is bigger, Beyonce is bigger. Like we should prioritize them because more people like them. Yeah. And that was never my like qualm. It was more like, I know that, but shouldn't we make space and time just because we're here and we've got something special and we're pouring all these resources into making people explore these paths anyway. It feels like really silly to not make more and more space as we have more and more resources pouring into them. It makes no sense. All the way from like youth services up to college, university, and then post-university now we have all of this kind of music and culture and creative architecture. But then when it comes to it existing alongside commercial work, it's like really hard to do. And people always make the business case against it.
It's funny, like there's like so many analogies with this, with like so many other conversations going on in like policy or economics at the moment where it's like, I don't know, there's like really dry stuff. Does the government buy stuff from like the domestic company, or does it go to like the US company that can do the same thing? And maybe it's quicker, maybe it's like even a bit cheaper, but like if you do that repeatedly, you never allow like your domestic company to ever be competitive. Exactly. But like it's kind of interesting to think about this through the lens of like culture as well. And it's like we have these, you know, actually having something like the BBC or these other like institutions which exist in order to be, and they're funded differently in order to be able to do different things and make different decisions. If they don't, then like almost like follow up on that privilege. Like there's what are they for? Yeah. I'd say that someone who's like, you know, I'm a big believer in it, but it's just, it's interesting.
A lot of the things have started to converge to be the same thing. So like if you, like the BBC and Netflix and Spotify and like the other kind of DSPs, Apple, Amazon and all these things, like they end up kind of producing really similar kinds of work. Even when it is platforming domestic work, it will still filter through the same lenses and ideas.
Interesting.
For example, if you're like, okay, it is, even if it is grime, for example, they'll be like, oh, we should make a grime documentary. Yeah. And then you have like 7 grime documentaries instead of just a story about a particular MC's experience or a story about why, you know, the technical side behind pirate radio. Like today, most people couldn't explain to you how this works, which feels like really, it's like been a through line over the last 40 years in British culture in general. But most people still couldn't break down like, oh, how that even worked. Yeah. They can understand the music and the cultures that came out of it. But I think there's like something interesting technically behind like all of that stuff that happened. It's not like, okay, I know all the back ends of that kind of stuff, right? And the frustration is like, okay, if one story gets told, it gets told 7 times rather than the 1,000 possible stories, you know what I'm saying? And even stories that are like, maybe kind of like grime being made on a PlayStation, for example. It's like, there's kind of like a half truth. There is like no like famous grime tune made on a PlayStation, as far as I know. But it's like one of those things that kind of sticks around and it's like, okay, explore it. Okay, there's not a lot there, but it sounds like a better story than probably what it is. And there are just, I guess like my battle with this kind of, my work is like trying to like widen the stories that we tell about our music. And the hard thing about, I guess, being part of like, I say like a niche scene or a niche within a niche. If I see myself as part of the pirate radio lineage and family in London, so that'd be like grime, dubstep, UK funky, drum and bass, jungle, UK garage, house, whatever, like reggae, sound system music, that lineage, then it's like, it kind of get flattened to like this one box, like maybe like Black British music, for example, and then 7 kind of like small threads come out of that, and then you end up with 2 stories told. And it's like, okay, when there's like 1,000.
There's like two things I want to like think about this. One is the type of work that gets made when like you're trying to sell into a world which is, you know, has some dominant platforms who make decisions, and it shapes the type of work that people can make. But the flip side of this is also like almost from a, like one of the things that I think is like still like vastly under theorized is like talent spotting.
Yes.
And like we think about it in VC and startups, and it's like you're looking for outliers. But there's actually like quite a lot of interest, sort of overlap with like A&Rs or, you know, like mob kitchen, like mob food. Like it's kind of really interesting, like how many like young creative chefs they basically found who have gone on to like make like serious careers as like food influencers or whatever. And I like, it's really someone there knew what they were doing, and they found like really interesting talent. I don't know, like from the perspective of both being an artist and also having run a label, how have you thought about like what stories are like, yes, there's a question of like what stories are worth telling and they don't get the airtime, but also like on the flip side is like when you're like looking for talent, you're looking for interesting people, you've got some like in the background, like, are they going to make it in this scene under these conditions?
Yeah. Oh man. I guess like the whole infrastructure of what I've been part of has been built on like anomalies, right? Like over the last 15 years, to be like, okay, this was worth doing. All of these resources were worth piling into to get an Ed Sheeran result, basically. And like basically our whole like cultural landscape is based on 1 or 2 of those things happening maybe every 3 years. And it's like it justifies all of the spend, justifies all of the buildings and infrastructure. But I guess we have this other side of what we do, like, or contribute, that has maybe like a problem with identifying like elite talent and pushing them upwards, and then supporting them all the way through. Right. So like we're very good at like supporting underdogs and getting people to a level. Yeah. And then that support kind of breaks if people don't maybe go to like some sort of arena or a stadium level. It's like really hard. So there's like massive middle ground of people that have ideas, contribute something interesting, but then are not able to push through because of like, okay, well, we've supported you now. Bam, we've got to like start again with the next phase.
There's something funny there. Like there's like the power law effect of like one like outlier success pays for the rest is like the model of VC in startups, etc. And it's true for like a label, or it can be true for a label. But an investor wrote this like interesting piece recently about like there's no power law for the founder. Yes, some of you make it, but like not everyone does. So he was making this argument, which I really like resonate with. So work on something that matters, because like you may or may not succeed. True. But if you don't succeed, at least like work on the thing that is most important to you or most important to the world. But there's also a funny side of this, which is like in that world, okay, maybe you're a software engineer, you work in sales or whatever it might be. The startups that win can accommodate other people in, like, you know, you get this like cycle of talent, and, you know, the winners get bigger, they recruit people, they hire people, and like people can find their, you know, maybe they build a company that doesn't work, but they can find their place in the ecosystem.
I think that's what I tried to do about it, is like the label and like I guess my learnings from it, I was trying to share as I went. Like, so whether the project ended up being successful or not, or projects being successful or not, artists being successful, people could see or get close to what we were doing. And I was trying to be like very transparent, like as transparent as practical as we could be, because at the time, this is not like a static industry that, you know, it's not, you know, widget 1, widget 2. It's like the time that we started was in the transition of, you know, vinyl to CD to MP3 to streaming. It was like 5 years. So even as a DJ, I went from playing records, vinyl, then to CDs, then to like laptop and Serato, this thing that you used to plug into the decks, and then to USB in the space of maybe like 5 or 6 years. So the technology, the speed of everything just completely changed. And I saw like companies, artists, everything in between, ideas wiped out every single year. So you're not just like everyone's like, oh, stay the course. It's like, well, effectively, the first 5 years of Butterz is like 5 different companies or 5 different kind of
Interesting.
fast iterations of ideas just to survive. And then the anomaly result happened because of this combination of like massive kind of buoyancy of the artists that orbited us and the artists that we were releasing, but then just the platform dial changes. So streaming in 2014 and 2015, kind of registering our music as something that is, oh, like people actually like this.
Interesting.
We can see the data behind this. The social access changed in terms of like being able to get to people easier through Instagram and Facebook groups. So we were able to sell tickets across the country in a way. 696 being dropped and brands feeling comfortable spending money on in a way that they didn't before on what we did. So it was like those probably 3 or 4 things. It wasn't, the music didn't change that drastically. It's like those kind of infrastructural changes. We're like, oh, okay. And then majors come in, all right, buy everything. And then it just inflates it's literally the same kind of content, the same music. And people were like, oh, okay, maybe this is actually valuable. Like nothing really changed about the product.
That's really interesting. How did you, just like go back a step, like how did you get into like founding Butterz in the first place?
Well, it's weird because I was just a music, like pirate radio fan. I was listening to Rinse FM. I was at university, just like not kind of enjoying my time there. So I would come like back to London, take photos sometimes of club nights and like talk to MCs, but not a lot. And then I was on the internet on this like forum called Rewind, which is like a magazine at the time. And then that forum shut down and a bunch of the kind of users of the forum started another forum called Grime Forum. And then I was like, okay, we've got like a little internet community. It was like the Twitter of Grime of the time. So this is 2007. And that maybe 300 or 400 people talking about grime and grime related or dubstep and all this kind of stuff for probably like 2 years. And then I guess it hit a point where I was thinking, what do I want to do in general? And I had this vision in my head of being a Rinse FM DJ and like a Guardian writer. But at the same time, I feel like you're a journalist and a DJ or something like this, right? And at the time, those things were just 2 different like lanes. You're either going to be like a critic or a contributor. Like you're an artist or you're a part of the audience. And I was like, why can't you be both? And then I spent some time interviewing people and writing about the scenes, and I guess trying to write about it in a different way to what, like usually people just do artist interview. How do you make the beat? What's this song about, kind of thing. But I was trying to broaden that. And then it just hit a point where you're like, okay, you want to put something in that you think is good. Like some of the things I just thought were terrible, or the ideas that the paths that people would go down were like kind of stupid. So I was like, okay, let me have a vision for what this could be. And I just happened to be graduating at university at the time. Needed something to get hold of. It was the credit crunch, no money, no kind of direct work opportunity as well. I was like struggling to find kind of employment, and I thought, you know what, me and my friend Will was like, okay, I'm gonna put whatever, £250 each from our part-time jobs or get a record produced. So like we were buying records from record shops from like these like dubstep labels, but grime had fallen off in terms of vinyl production. So we're like, let's make a grime version of Hyperdub or Temper, like these kind of dubstep labels that were hot at the time, and build something like that. And I thought that it would be like effectively like a hobby project, something I do in the evening. So like play on Rinse and do some club nights here and there, and then eventually, get a job. And then there was this kind of monetary thing where I was getting offered roles at like 17 grand starting. So I was like, I think I can make 17 grand in grime. And that was it. And then it was just like, as long as that, as I got older, I guess the opportunity cost of, going into like more mainstream work versus just continuing this project and all of the kind of arms that just developed into organically. It was like, I could either do this, be in control of my own destiny, or work at an institution or a brand or something and get paid less and have less autonomy and have less like control and not be contributing to something that felt like very temporary
Yeah.
anyway. Like I was so aware of like being part of something that felt special.
Mhm.
And there were certain moments where I was like, okay, maybe, in 10 years' time, people will look back at this as important.
There's a thing I've been thinking about, this sort of overlap between artists and like startup founders. And I feel like maybe this is a stretch, but I think there's something in it that like there's actually quite a lot of overlap. These worlds, like the creative worlds and like the tech worlds, often feel very like adversarial. The copyright stuff is a good example of that, or like people like critiquing techno-optimism or whatever it might be. But actually, like something underlying both that just feels like really actually just rare in the rest of our like country and society is like an ability to take risk and like be comfortable with that. I guess also be like an understanding of like there being some like almost like uncapped upside, like, for the people that make it, like you can do really well. But then like kind of to your point before, like you have this like differentiated vision of the world that is like not being provided by what's already out there. And like the kind of entrepreneurialism that's required basically to be like, if that's how I think the world should look, I'm actually like best placed to build that.
Yeah.
But it's funny, like I don't think people like often see it like that. Well, it's interesting hearing you talk about like the conditions under which you were like first starting out. It's not like it was like some economic boom period and like everything was going great. Maybe that's in some ways like why you ended up having to do DIY. But then you look forward to today and like the relationship between like people's economic circumstances and like how much risk they feel like they can take. And actually, I don't know, like it's when things aren't great economically and we haven't grown for 20 years.
Yeah.
Equally, like I don't know whether you think it's like an easier or a harder time to start for someone today.
No, I think I had a clear view on what the opportunity was of this day.
Yeah.
And that was like the right thing to do at that time. It wouldn't be the right thing to do today for probably equivalent 21-year-old that's trying to figure things out. If you're looking at the things that we started in the 10s or even just anything pre-COVID, I'm like, do not use that as your frame of reference to create something today. It is good in terms of maybe seeing journeys, but if you ask me me telling you how I started is not the same answer as how I would start today if I was started at 21 with the information that I have today. And the successes of today could look completely differently. And sometimes to our generation or like people even older than me, that their success is not legible to them. So I'm like, I don't expect you to understand why this works or why the metrics of this kind of level of success. Even the artistic ambition is completely different. Like at the time, my goals were very like small. They were like, okay, we want to put records in a shop. We want to play on pirate radio. We want to sell tickets to a club. It wasn't create global brand, tour internationally, that kind of thing, or even have like a kind of strong political vision or anything like that. Maybe there was some sort of underlying thing of like a bit of like kind of fuck the system, but not to the point of, say, tweeting at Zach Polanski or something. That wouldn't have been something that I was doing at the time, or like questioning the tax system, or asking like, why am I paying VAT on this thing? Like that wasn't really what I was focused on at the time, and I didn't feel like I had the power to influence that in any sense, even though it was something that was impacting me. But now I think a 21-year-old, 22-year-old does have the power in some way to bend like discourse in a way that we didn't, and I think that's like something. When I see people, in one post they'll post their new drum and bass tune, and then the next post they'll post about like a social issue or food bank or something that's going on in their local area. I'm like, whoa, that's different. And I think it's super interesting. And there's opportunities based on that kind of activism and communication too that are like financially rewarding for people. So I understand why people explore it more creatively too. Whereas at the time, I guess my kind of activism was like less theoretical. Like it was like, okay, well, I'm actually dealing with the Metropolitan Police. Yeah. So I couldn't just be like tweeting about it would have derailed what I was trying to do. Yeah. But today I think it's more artistically and socially acceptable to like tweet through the process of dealing with like an institution.
But maybe that's kind of an interesting segue onto kind of how we met and like some of the kind of how we originally got connected. Without getting like too political, there's definitely like a sense of like need for change. But then like the visions of what that can look like can look like really, really different. And one of the first things we like ever like spoke about was kind of like techno-optimism or something.
Mm-hmm.
It's quite important, but it's not, there's quite a lot of resistance to it, particularly in like creative culture.
Yeah, definitely.
Like last year, like when the AI and copyright like debate came up, and you had the debate got reduced down to Elon versus Elton. And you're like, this is like not a serious way to have this conversation. But like, if that's the level of conversation we're going to have, we also need to build up some new idols on both sides. I don't know like how that resonates with you. And like I feel like you've been thinking about this quite a lot and trying to, as you say, almost like a niche within a niche, like carve out a slightly different worldview and outlook within these communities. Yeah,
it's really hard because the people are picking sides, and then I guess their ideology forms around that so hard that they can't even take on a good idea from another side at all. And, you know, sometimes I see this like idea of like, rather than like left or right, it's like up or down. Like what vision do you have of the future? Do you want it to be like how it was before, or do you want it to be like something else, or like to develop and move forward? Do you want Elizabeth lines in every city, or do you want it to be like the old Bakerloo line, like what, or nothing change? Yeah. And it's not not just a case of like faster trains or something like that. It's like there being a train at all. Yeah. Like that kind of thing. Yeah. The way I've spoken about this, that most people seem to react to or respond to, or maybe are surprised by my points of view, is I'll say, I'll frame every policy failure as tax. So I'll say, like the train to Manchester, whatever the price of that is a policy failure, and that is a tax on our work, or on our way of communicating, our way of bonding with the rest of the country. So if it's like £146 for me to go to Manchester, that is a tax. Yeah. Even like Walthamstow Central to Farringdon, it being like £9 at like 9 a.m. is a tax. Yeah. And the student finance and all this kind of stuff is another 9% tax on your income. Yeah. So all of these things are like not working. So you don't, why your politics, if you just address the numbers of those things, usually people will say, oh, okay, that's like, so you're saying there should be less tax? I'm like, kind of, or like, why don't these things work properly? That's more the question. Yeah. And that, like, if the outcome you want is like a country that does feel connected to itself, and like that, if it's so hard to get around the country and actually you end up living in like very different like silos, and you don't feel connected, or you feel like London, you know, it has its challenges, but it can kind of run away relative to the rest of the country. Like, you know, I'm from near Stoke, and like I love it. It's a special place, but like it's seen better days, and like people know that, and it's not found a place in sort of like this new like global economy very well. Yeah. And like there's a whole load of cities that, if you just like build some trains or fix the local transport, they can have a revival. I was talking to someone recently who was talking about like Leeds being like a really like interesting entrepreneurial creative city, and almost like the indignity of not being able to pay its own way. Yeah. And like, he's like an entrepreneur. He's like found a company that employs loads of people. And I just thought he like put it really, really well, that like there's, what is this country if we can't be connected to each other, and we can't like allow everywhere to kick on? Yeah, this is a good example. Yesterday, Sasha Lord, who's like a representative of Manchester, and he tweeted something like, Manchester has brought all these massive events to the UK, or like these massive events in the UK happening in Manchester. Like we're the kind of cultural powerhouse right now. And I'm going to London to talk about it with the people. I'm like, so I think in a function, or if the UK is functioning as best as possible, we'd have at least 5 cities that are like Manchester, not one. And the person that is representing Manchester would be able to talk about that in Leeds and be oh, this is how we can make Leeds a banger. Like this is how we can make Newcastle like that. Not preaching to London about like how great Manchester is and why we should come and visit. You know what I'm saying? And it still doesn't change the economics of, okay, well, if I want to go to Manchester, it's £150. Yeah. And that just breaks everything. And I guess looking towards like 2028 and 2029, the art, cultural institutions, music industry, whatever, it's got to like ask itself what outcome it wants. Like not what your ideological position is, like what is going to be an effective way of communicating the outcomes that you want. And if you don't get what you want, what does that look like?
Mm.
What does, okay, if reform comes in, for example, or like a reform Tory coalition, or something that you would make you feel uneasy today, what do you think they will do to your institutions or to your funding or to prioritize your points of view? So if you believe that to be the case, what are the next 2-3 years, what are the kind of courses of actions and things that we should be doing as artists, as an industry, as a kind of cultural ecosystem to either pivot away from that or make a better case for us existing to that inevitable outcome?
Yeah.
So what is the case for, I guess, publicly funded arts, and how does that function best for the entire country? What should we make? What should we say? And being able to answer that question in a very far away will ensure survival.
Yeah, there's a funny version of this, like without it being like about any one side in particular. I can see like quite a lot of, I can totally understand a viewpoint which is like, you elect a particular government, that government should think about what it spends money on as a capital allocation problem, and like, these are the things we care about, so these are the things we're going to spend money on, these things we don't care about, rather than like inheriting a hand and being like, well, there's nothing we can do. And like, in some ways, I think one of the reasons why there is so much like clamor for change in so many different directions is because it feels like not very much actually changes from like each government to government. And so like, in theory, I'm sort of like very open to the idea that actually like every 5 years, things like might look quite different. And that's probably a good thing. And you think about democracy as like error correction. And so if something goes wrong, the whole point is like, you can vote the last people out and get new people in. But then there are these things along the way that kind of like, we think have this intrinsic value, they have this cultural value, and maybe also in a world where the economics, the market for art and like creativity is not an easy market. I don't know, this is not groceries or some like random thing where just like a lot of people can get employed and have stable income. It's like a very weird one.
Again, like if we can fix all these other things, so like, you know, that phrase like Rent is a creative director, if we can fix all these other things, that actually might be better than trying to fix the cultural policy.
Yeah.
So it would be, would we live in a more interesting country if the greengrocer or the farmer also has time to make art, right? Or
there's this podcast I subscribe to, and there's a part of me that's like, I don't know how they make enough money. And then I was like, oh, they live in Berlin. Like that's why, like their living costs are low, so they can take risks. And it makes a city more interesting. And like, we should make rent cheap so that cities can be interesting. That just feels obvious, and yet we're not. Like we kind of haven't been able to kind of coordinate our societies in a way to actually like make that happen.
Yeah.
And maybe like this is like one of the other ways, and like we initially kind of got connected is like talking about culture as a coordination technology, really. And then finding like what are the cultures that scale, and do they still work when they scale?
Yes.
It's kind of like quite an interesting question.
One of the, like everything comes down to scale, like, and it's the same again with the university question. Like again, if we have 10,000 people doing music management MA, it doesn't work. That thing breaks. And the same thing with one of the obvious things that comes up quite a lot is like, say, like taxing the rich or something. And then if you ask people like what that looks like, and then you can kind of model some amount of money that it raises. Yeah. I'm like, okay, model like what money that raises. You're like, okay, cool, that's what it is. Okay, now what should we do with it? And it's like, spend it on the NHS. I'm like, ah, cool. And then, okay, now I spent on
now what?
Now what? And I think like taking these things to their kind of creative limit is like, it's interesting. It should be more explored. I'm not like a shout down someone that thinks that. I'm like, let's actually ask the question. Let's like unravel this and make the people that speak about this, that I feel like are trying to advocate for us as artists or people that are trying to make interesting things happen. Like, let's make them show their work. Make them show their numbers. Yeah. And like, okay, now we kind of get a view of it.
What do you think has been the like biggest influence of like creative direction, time or rent?
I think every part of my like success and reason for being here is time and place. And, you know, again, rent. So I am a child of Jamaican immigrants. Yeah. Living in East London in the 80s. A beneficiary of all of the infrastructure that got built around some of the things that got left alone as well. So I feel like I'm a very I'm not like what people would describe as privilege, but I'm like this very kind of no money beginning privileged person. But
Interesting.
my mum like owns her house. I was able to stay at home until like my mid-20s. So I was able to benefit from all this culture on a doorstep that someone that has to pay to be here doesn't.
Yeah.
And that gave me, and the rest of the crew actually, like the people that I work with, an advantage over everyone else. And what I've tried to do with that privilege is like, okay, well, I'm going to share my work or use what I've been learning through and be honest about that too.
Yeah.
I wasn't trying to hide that.
Yeah.
And something that people didn't identify necessarily as a privilege. And I'm not, this is not like financial privilege. It's location, timing, even just awareness of that and the awareness of thinking that is important to make other people aware of it.
How have you seen that when you've like, because you do a lot of work around the country and like you travel around and you travel around both like the UK and globally, like help us like contextualize that.
Well, it makes some people feel uncomfortable because in some spaces I'm supposed to be the diverse character. So I'm supposed to be like the person that is like,
Brilliant.
you know, come from, you know, like whatever working class black background. But it's like, that doesn't mean the same thing if I'm in Coventry. You know what I mean? And then now I'm older as well.
Yeah.
Like I do something that is like youth coded, but I'm not young. I'm 38. So I benefited from some structural things that are not there anymore. I benefited from going to university when it was £1,200. I literally paid the first bit of tuition in cash. Like, because that was like doable at that time. Whereas today,
I can't even imagine that.
like, me and my mum were at this thing.
I'm not complaining too much, but
like, and handed over cash. You know what I'm saying?
Wow.
And I still, you know, I had a student loan, all these things, but it's nowhere near the kind of scale what it was. I was the last thing before it turned into 3,000, and I think it's like now it's like £9,000 or something.
Yeah.
And like when I see these debates of, it's not, your degree is not the same if you've paid 3 times more, and then it's not the same if you paid 9 times more, and then it's not the same if you say like my generation, like people that came to London were paying £300 or £400 in rent to live in Hackney, and then you're paying £1,500.
There's a funny thing here of, I want to see what you think about this. There's a version of the story or the ambition that more people should go to university that came out of the late 90s where you had, I remember reading this, like there's this strategist that worked for Tony Blair at the time called Philip Gould, and he was like writing about basically why like actually working down the mines, like maybe it was like dignified work and it was great for communities, but like the actual work itself was like pretty grim, and like that should not be the sum total of our ambition for like people. And so he was sort of talking about this new like services economy that was, you know, going to be coming after the turn of the millennium, and sending people to university, encouraging people to go to university was like a way to enfranchise them and to give them a ticket into that new world so that they had a stake and they could kind of capture some of that value. And there's something actually quite like really aspirational there.
100%.
The flip side of it is obviously like to a degree, like maybe too many people went to university. There aren't enough jobs, like who's hiring all the grads? And so I think you've got to kind of ask yourself like there's like 2 things. One is the bundle that university represents maybe is no longer working. It's like, is it good value for students? Like quite a lot of people probably not. Is it good value actually like for like the researchers and the teachers and like the scientists who like spend all their day doing paperwork rather than actually like furthering science or whatever it is? Is it good value for the taxpayer? Probably not either. So there's like quite a big question of like, so what comes next? And like, I don't quite know how I think about this, but like for me, rather than sort of like relying on, you know, maybe this is easy to say, like we both went to university, like you get to rely on it, but like maybe in future we don't rely on like the sort of institutional authority of some credential that we got from an institution, but like you have to think about new types of like work where the feedback loop between like what you do and the value is much clearer. So if you like set up a company and you make money, like you sort of know when someone values what you're doing. Kind of similarly to a degree with art in the creative sector, partly because like maybe you make money, but also like almost like, you know how like artisanal like makers have a sense of their own like self-worth and the sort of intrinsic value of what they're doing. And neither of these people are reliant on some third-party institution to be like, you came here for 3 years, you did this course, therefore you are like, you can do the thing.
Yeah.
You just go straight to it.
Yeah.
But that's going to take like quite a mindset shift from like where we are today, I think. I don't know. I don't know
I
how
feel
we
like
prepare people
those
for
are
that.
things that people are able to achieve, like maybe if they have a home and they have like a real stake in the places where they live. And if you don't, then you're always going to be kind of like darting around, like trying to figure out what's next.
Yeah.
And this happens to me quite a lot as well when I'm moving project to project. It is always like a what nextification of work.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas if you know that, for example, your project is going to be in Coventry for 10 years, you're going to work differently to someone that is going to go Coventry to Leeds to London, back to Cardiff, and not really settle and make roots. You might make money, but the impact of your work is going to be stunted every time. Do you know what I'm saying?
But also like you've got, I don't know, like Close the App, Make the Ting was a call to people to just try, just go make something.
Yeah.
And like, I don't know whether it's whether you'll like the comparison to like a Mark Andreessen, It's Time to Build, but it kind of has like an energy of like, just crack on.
Yeah.
Like, don't wait for permission, don't wait for an institution or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
How, like, since you wrote the book, how has that played out? Do you still feel, I don't know, like, how's the feedback been? Like, is this like a worldview that you like still like subscribe to? Has it evolved? Like, yeah.
Yeah, it definitely has evolved, but I think like the Close that I made the thing is like a filtering process. It's like, okay, if you only have 4 hours a week, then make a project that is 4 hours a week. Don't try and make Thriller or like your magnum opus like that.
Yeah.
That, or your magnum opus might be the 4 hour a week that you have project, and that makes you create something very different to what Andreessen is doing or Rick Rubin or something like that. This is the time that I have, so I'm bending like my creativity to that. Okay, and then you get something different.
Yeah.
Okay, these are the feedback loops that I can create. Cool, you get something different, and I think that's where we get interesting work. It's not like one of the hard things about working in, I guess, music adjacent. It's like, well, everyone's thing just ended up on Spotify. Just dump it, and it's like link in bio. We became link in bio basically as an industry.
Who do you think is doing like interesting stuff today?
I'm gonna go with like a super obvious example, and then, like people listen to us will be really, very disappointed and annoyed, and I kind of want you to be annoyed by this answer, right? Okay, here we go. Fred again, right? This guy, the velocity of the output is part of like the creative. I've not spoken to him directly about any of these things. These are just my observational thoughts. Yeah. That is like some sort of like athlete level kind of presentation of work. That's super interesting. Then you have the shows that are like very like diverse in terms of the presentation. Like, so sometimes he presents as like a band or like kind of acoustic musician, like just playing the piano. Sometimes it's as a DJ. And then there's like this kind of like physical kind of endurance. I went to see the show a few weeks ago, Alexandra Palace. He's doing like open to close. Like if you don't see any major musician go on stage for 5.5 hours and feel that like act as like a vessel where other scenes and music and generations can plug into. So like the show I went to had Ezra Collective. It had a couple of MCs and other different DJs from different generations. And it just felt like a kind of modern encapsulation of like great like British music. And I think it's not just like just doing that. It's like doing that at the pace, the volume of music, the volume of like quality, the amount of talented people that it magnetizes. And then the back end as well. So like the team and the people working on it behind that sort was like a kind of all-star cast of like super interesting creatives that are like working hard to make anything happen.
You describing it like this has reminded me a bit of you know that interview with like Timothy Chalamet last year where he's like, I just want to be the best. Yeah. And like he had somehow like crystallized something, and like there's a bit of a vibe shift where that level of like ambition is like accepted and championed in a way that I think, particularly maybe in Britain, like there's a bit of like a tall poppy syndrome. It's like, nah, like let's cut them down. But yeah, okay, you're convincing me.
Yeah, and then like even on social media, it's like he uses it like an instrument. And I had like one of these sayings in the book, is like social media is a canvas, not an advertising board. So like if you scroll it, it feels like you're playing the beats. It feels like you are part of the music in some way. And I don't know if that's deliberate, the way they cut things. Like you could scroll and it's like boom, 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 boom. But like you feel like in the music. And
interesting.
Like people might not be aware of those mechanics, but it's like it's happening and it's effective and it's working. And it's so difficult to make people care about something. But then when you see like the movement of 10,000 people to one thing these days, people like always say, oh, like no one cares about music, or like people are ambivalent, or kids don't. I'm like, okay, go to a show. I went to Dave's show last week. there isn't that feeling there. So we're like that feeling that say Dave, Fred again, or whoever's your person, Pink Panthers, Neo Archives, Sherelle, Shabaka, whatever your artist is, those people that can move an amount of people, like what do we do with that energy post show?
Yeah.
Everyone leaves. What do they do next?
Yeah.
Like those are the people like make the thing. Like once you've seen that thing, you're like, oh, like, I need to go and make something. I mean, it's not just a feeling of, oh, I had a good time. It's like, okay, where has that energy kind of been harnessed post show? You know what I'm saying?
There's a special thing that like I think you're capturing there, and that you write about in the book about like that special energy.
Mm-hmm.
Pretty interesting actually. Also hearing you talking about like the show the other week as a real like platform encapsulation of like British music, like people at like the top of the game. I feel like there's maybe like an interesting like question around the Britishness of the music, and like for some people that's like really important. I don't know whether it's for Fred again necessarily. Like he's British, but he's like winning everywhere, and like that level of ambition is kind of cool as well. How much does the British question like played into your work? It seems like something you've been thinking about like particularly recently, but has that always been true?
I'm not sure. I think a lot of like Brits or like all of us here, it's like we just take these things as normal, and now that we get to consume
What
content,
sort of things are you thinking about?
well, just like, oh, you can make music and put it up and share it, and someone could come from out of nowhere, or like there's an infrastructure for someone to be invested in at the level that say like Fred again has, or the way that people have committed to Dave. Like, whereas again, you go to most places and that's not the case. Like, you may have an anomaly result, but the fact that we have an industry, we have an ecosystem that allows that to happen is still a beautiful thing. But like in terms of I guess the nationalism part of it, or like even using that word makes people feel uncomfortable.
Yeah, it's interesting.
I'm like, okay, well, how do you celebrate like British greatness or greatness that is created here without that? Like, why don't we find ways to use it? Like, I find like here's a like easy contradiction I have. I think like the way like the UK rappers that use the Union Jack is like annoying, because they just like have it there with no other kind of explanation of why they use it. They're like, oh, we're from the UK,
so we use the flag.
Like, we want you to identify us as different from Americans, basically. I think that's what they use it for. It's like, okay, we're from here. Yeah. But I feel like there's also like this kind of, it doesn't matter how the music sounds, or like it sounded British. It's like, I'm from Britain.
Do you think it's like, do you think it sounds the same as American? But like
it's getting closer.
It's just like a different aesthetic.
Yeah, so it's getting, it's like, it's converging like closer. And then sometimes I think, okay, people that are making a deliberate effort and the things that Zakir talks about is to filter their influences to be like, okay, obviously I can make a song that sounds American, or like people wouldn't identify where it could come from. But there are people that are like, I'm going to deliberately like not do it that way and make it sound British. I'm going to make a jungle tune with the same concept as what I could have made a rap tune with, but it has to be jungle because I'm from here. Yeah. And I think that is like something that we should take notice of and uplift. And even to a degree, it's like part of even, it's like sometimes with music critics and this kind of stuff, like they review and say, oh, what is better? Is this song better than another song? I'm like, I'm not sure like that's that interesting. I think, is the direction that the thing is heading more interesting than necessarily the execution being better. You know what I'm saying? And one of the artists I talk about a lot, Jim Legacy, sometimes people listen to the music and they're like, oh yeah, I don't like this song. I'm like, I don't care if you like the song. Like, where is it heading? Like, is it going in an interesting path? Yeah. Like, people heard say whatever, Digital Rascal in 01, and they can go, oh, this is like a pivot. Yeah. They might not have liked the song, or thought, oh the mix down could be different, or this thing's a bit harsh on it is. Yeah, but it was pivoting away from something that became like so just hollow, you know what I'm saying? And then that we like, oh, okay, cool. That to me feels like more interesting.
Definitely.
And
you think of yourself as, do you feel patriotic?
Now I'm having to be partly because people are taking these things for granted. So I will go out and, just the ambient music of places that I'll hear 50 Cent just a little bit, or Joe Budden pump it up, and these things in just the fabric of my day
Yeah.
that just feels annoying. You know, like something I've experienced for the
Yeah.
last 20 years, and it's just thoughtlessness and
I agree.
carelessness from people that should know better. And that, you know, like some people say, oh, it just doesn't matter. It's like, oh, who cares? Like no one's really listening anyway. I'm like, okay, if no one's listening, just make a bit of effort to put something there that is either going to put someone onto an information, or it's going to just support someone that's making good stuff.
Right.
That we can all identify as being like, oh, like these people are making an effort to put new work out in the world. Do you know what I'm saying? And so now I'm like, okay, listen to this. Check this new rapper SIBO. Otherwise, you'll just go and listen to Drake again. I know you're going to listen to Drake again afterwards, but just listen to this one song.
Go. Yeah.
Yeah, just listen to this one song.
Yeah.
And if people don't do that, then we just don't get the new songs.
Yeah.
Or no one will hear them.
Yeah.
And my little bit of difference to be like, oh, okay, sometimes even just saying like London is great, and people give you all these reasons why it's not. I'm like, I know, but it's still great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And like just being willing to like, you sort of choose the myths that you believe in. Right? I mean, maybe it's not even a myth, but like you choose the truths that you believe in, and like which ones you amplify and which ones you like really like make some noise around. And it just feels like, you know, it kind of goes back to the tall poppy thing. Like we're so like, I don't know, maybe this is like the quintessential like British thing, but just to be like a bit miserly and a bit like,
yeah.
And it's like, actually, like there's really great stuff here.
Exactly. Yeah. And just not accept everything as normal, because if you lived in, say, like another city in the UK, then you just wouldn't be getting the same experience. But then sometimes people say, oh, where would you move to if you could like leave the UK? And I say, well, I'm born here, so there's maybe like there is a bias, which I'm benefiting from, but like I don't actually want to live anywhere else.
Yeah.
And people are just like, oh, well, the weather's better somewhere else. I know. Like, and I think that one of the benefits of being in this city is I can go to those places when I want, and I can come back. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. And like, I don't see there's like not a lot of downside for me being like, okay, I'm sure Lisbon's great. I can just go there and I can come back. And that is one of the benefits of living in the city. And, you know, especially well-moneyed people that live here, I'm like, enjoy your money and enjoy the city to the fullest extent. It's very different when people are having like whatever economic problems and living conditions are really difficult and they can't enjoy the benefits of the city. That is a very different challenge. And a lot of like my friends and I guess the people in the wider ecosystem I'm part of are kind of shut out from benefiting from the best of the city. So yes, I can go to the O2 and to Alexandra Palace and go Roller Nation rather. There are like fragments of that everyone can enjoy.
I feel like when you're born in a place, you can have this like revealed preference of you care about that place, and like maybe you don't explicitly kind of care about it more than other countries or whatever, but like you spend more time there, you have more attention to it, whatever. But it's kind of like a background thing, and I think that can like, you know, that meme of like the guy is like, I don't know, it's like a cartoon drawing, he's like sitting back and then he's sitting up.
Yeah,
and there's
my
moment,
favorite.
Yeah, and then there's a moment I think we're in. And it's that, but for patriotism. Yes. And there's like we sit, as you said, like you kind of take things for granted. And then you're like, there's like two ways in which it feels like it's being threatened. One is like the people just being really thoughtless and like not creating space and platform for like British culture. And then the other side of it is like the worst people you know trying to claim patriotism for like something like awful and divisive. And it kind of like, I do think it's kind of incumbent on like, if you are just like in the middle of that, to be like, no, like that's not what we mean, and like this stuff we need to kind of like push back on it as well. Yeah, asserting like a sense of like national identity and national purpose, like
in Grime we used to just call it repping, right? Like repping your ends, like repping like where you come from, and that being like your sense of pride, and that is connected to the land, the nation in some way, and for a lot of us, where our parents have come from and the traditions that follow. But then part of what makes all those things interesting is like, okay, well, we also have a platform to display them. Do you know what I'm saying? And that is, again, that is part of our experience here. But then if we were somewhere else, that would have been like pushed out. So I'm like, okay, well, if you lived in, like maybe if you lived in America, you just become American. Or if you lived in France, you just become French. Like here, we get to kind of explore both, like being like a British Jamaican, for example. But I'm like, also like understand that that's a kind of like a privilege in itself. You know what I'm saying? And not being like, no, I'm just Jamaican. I'm like, okay,
Yeah.
let's benefit from both sides if we're here,
Yeah.
right? This is what's hopefully like over the next few years as I explore this as an artist or as a writer or in my work, is like there are going to be times where it feels uncomfortable, and that's what makes interesting art. Yeah, sure. Okay, if your work or even the people that you're interacting with, like you may disagree with them on half the things,
Yeah.
but then you agree on these things. I'm like, okay, well then shouldn't we be trying to like overlap and work in some degree?
Yeah.
And it's, I guess, in the arts and cultural space, it is the last decade that I guess the policy has been to stay away from hard topics or people that disagree with some of the bigger things. I'm like, well, I don't want to participate in something that eliminates talking to half of the population. This feels really silly. And part of, like I say, my work is going to be like straddling in that creatively. Like how do you speak to, you know, the I guess the place that I'm from, the people that I've come up with, the institutions that have like even amplified me or supported my work, at the same time as like helping that kind of reach new people or challenging some of the things that are going, I feel like are going wrong in the space that I'm in, or how we can communicate our ideas better to the rest of the country and how more people can benefit from ideas that we share and vice versa. Or the things that are going right or people that are able to communicate ideas well that people are resonating with. What is it about those things that are connecting with people?
Yeah.
And I you know, one of the hard things I remember during the kind of Brexit debate and, you know, the vote and all that kind of stuff is that you never want to be in a position as an institution or as an artist where you call people dumb. And if you're calling like the people that surround you stupid, you've lost them forever, you know?
Yeah.
And then hopefully, again, in the next 2-3 years, we just make better arguments, better case for existing, better, not just like more accessible work, but it's like work that people can interact with and be like, okay, like even like, say like, if you love music, you should learn how to DJ is like my version of that. Is like, okay, instead of being just seeing yourself as an audience member, like participate by collecting or having your point of view. You know what I'm saying?
Deep Feedback, the podcast that you've launched, like the way that you talk about it is this like post-internet kind of discussion space, basically. Like what does that mean to you?
Yeah, like deep feedback is the idea of the only response that I'm measuring is an artistic one. So if someone's like, oh yeah, I really like your work, I'm like, okay, well, so what? I don't care. Like I want to know like what it made you do, what it made you think, rather than I listened to it. So if someone says, oh, someone released a good album, but I'm like, okay, how many people did you text it to?
Yeah.
Or what ticket do you buy to take a friend that had never heard of the artist? That is the only feedback that matters. Like not just like, oh, did you buy it and listen to it by yourself in your headphones? Like that is not going to be enough, even to move the needle for the artist. Yeah, they might have made like £8 on Bandcamp, but actually you telling someone else is the difference between them making 16. And that is like the only thing really worth tracking.
Yeah.
And like the longer I've gone on producing work, and especially out of very small set of ideas, I've got loads of ideas, but like a very small set of kind of prompts is like how many different shapes can those take? So if at the core, the yellow squares, for example, like the note series, there's like 20 ideas maybe at best, just bent in different ways. And then I could probably make projects out of them, small, big, significant, insignificant. And then other people can make loads of projects out. And that feels like something that is like doable, sustainable for me. Like it's not costing like loads of money. It's fun.
Yeah.
And it's also like not me. It's meaning that I'm not going down the rabbit hole of having to sell supplements or athletic greens, whatever it's going to be. You know what I'm saying? And this is what keeps my like autonomy and connects me with the most interesting people possible.
Yeah, man.
So yeah.
Yeah. I'm excited to see where Deep Feedback goes. And thanks, man. Thanks for a good conversation.
Thank you. The only thing I can hope for the next 3 years is that I guess the things that I'm part of recognize that it has the power to change something.
Right.
And I'm a small part of a massive cog of things.
Culture is like high leverage.
Yeah.
And there's a rich theme there.
Thank you.
Thanks, man.
Thank you, man.
Thanks to Elijah. Every time we talk, I leave with so much energy about who we can be and how we get there. Hopefully you enjoyed it too. I definitely recommend picking this book. Close the app, make the ting. For now, let me know your feedback, leave a rating, review, wherever you get your podcasts. And thanks to the Centre for British Progress for supporting the podcast, to Podcast House for production support, and to Simon Panayi for original music.